And the voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots. They have no connections to the city. They have no families they are raising in this city. They have no one that they are sending to school in this city. They have no jobs in this city. They have no connections to this community at all. But they're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. And I'm glad they're here today. Because me, Pete, and the Vice President are all going to leave here, and inspired by them, we're going to add thousands more resources to this city to get the criminals and the gang members out of here.
So let's check back in on Washington, D.C., where today we saw yet another lame, low-energy protest. This is yet another example of ineffectual liberal protesters utterly humiliating themselves. Someone ought to send the memo that Woodstock was almost 60 years ago now. This stuff is no longer cool. It is not countercultural, and it actually is highly counterproductive to the message they are trying to send, because if the Democrat Party is trying to claw back out from the minority, from the fringes of being perceived as this weird party of lunatic radicals, I don't think that screaming in the way you're going to see today in Union Station will do so. But if you don't want to take my word for it, take the word of Vice President JD Vance, Pete Hegseth, and Stephen Miller, who made a serious point today to play into the clownery that you saw outside. So we'll tell you all about this here today. The visit to Union Station to check up on the National Guard. Apparently they gave them some burgers. It was just kind of a nice little photo op. But the way in which liberal protesters decided to make a big show out of it, and newsflash, as you saw probably in the opening clip, it really did not go all that well for them. And nationally speaking, we're once again here dealing with the issue where after 4 years of pretending to learn any lessons from the 2020 and post-2020 fallout, Democrats are once again back into the corner of defending high crime rates as a political policy, something as we've shown time and time again, whether that's interviews with local DC residents or national election results in 2024 and beyond. This is not a winning position, okay? Crime is popular with no one, even many of the DC residents who quietly, as Joe Scarborough even admitted himself, are kind of thankful that this federal takeover is happening, because guess what? DC is a cesspool. It is dangerous. Deep down, it is a basic human instinct to want to feel safe. And well, guess what? Here we have these people today trying to fight back against all of that. It's not going to work, and we'll tell you why. So that said, guys, do us a favor here. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing, guys, is not only the best way to support our videos, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that in mind, so here today, we had, again, JD Vance, Hegseth, and Stephen Miller, some members of the cabinet, making a visit to the National Guard who are posted in Union Station in Washington, D.C. Now, I've mentioned this in many of the videos on the subject, but Union Station, if you've been around there in D.C. the past several years, has become a cesspool. The last time I was there, October 2024, right before the election, you're literally stepping over homeless people just to go see it and get in and out of it. And so this obviously is an area where you've had a lot of not just vagrants, but robberies, scamming, all of that type of stuff. But obviously, these protesters here today are able to show up safe to Union Station because National Guard and other federal law enforcement have ensured that it is now a clean, safe, and decent area. That said, clearly these people allegedly maybe paid, who knows, not so happy today. Check out how they greeted Vance and Hegseth in Union Station, and then we'll show rapidly how the embarrassment starts to roll in for these people. You know, I'm sure that did so much. I'm sure that the federal occupation of the city is now just going to end because you screamed a million things. So typical, liberalism really is an illness because you see there the typical behavior. So the first person is saying, oh, F you Nazi. Okay, whatever. The second girl, interestingly, she can't even figure out or decide what she is protesting. This is exactly what stage 5 Trump derangement syndrome looks like. Because first she says free Palestine, then she says healthcare and climate justice, and then she says that we need to free DC. So which one is it? What are you actually here today to do? Other than scream a lot of things. I guess that's the entire point. And then the last individual, get the F out of my city. Well, newsflash, I think the lesson that the residents of D.C. are currently learning is that Washington, D.C., constitutionally speaking, if you've read it, if you know what it was intended to be, is not actually, quote unquote, just your city. It is our city. It belongs to the federal government. It belongs to the people of this nation. It's our capital. It's not just a random city in a state. It's carved out and designed explicitly in the Constitution to be under federal control, which is all to say that the idea of DC self-governance, which for the past 100 years or so, only then has become a thing. Guess what? It was always able to be temporary in the case where you lunatics largely, which by the way work in things like government bureaucracy, right, the swamp, all of these issues are completely degrading our nation's capital. Guess what the people of this country through our elected representatives actually have the ability to do? Take it back. But nonetheless, okay, so there you saw, just whatever, the typical screaming. Again, they're accomplishing so much. I mean, this guy, he really proved something, right? The world is not just laughing at these people. That said, you will start to see in this video right here, I love this one, as to how tired basically everyone is of the constant protesting and screaming and hysteria. If they didn't learn from the 2024 election that people have a bit of a fatigue, okay, they're tired of this nonsense. Here you'll see this protester with the, Palestinian garb, I don't know, whatever, right? Just screaming random stuff at this poor, innocent DC Metro police officer who's just... He looks like he's had a long day dealing with these individuals. But you see a hilarious exchange here after the officer, starts calling her out for cultural appropriation, which is actually a very interesting point, right? Because in order to stand with Palestine or whatever, you've seen a lot of these white liberals start wearing what is, I guess, Middle Eastern clothing or something. And yeah, by their very standards that we might remember from years ago, this is exactly what that should be. But take a listen here as this individual is stunned to find out that, by her own rules, they're actually committing here a cardinal sin of leftism. Okay, check it out.
Appropriation. By wearing a scarf that is trying to stop a genocide. You think that's appropriating a culture? Okay, in one way. How is that appropriating Palestinian culture? How is my wearing a keffiyeh appropriating Palestinian culture? You're the one who said it. You're the one who said I was appropriating Palestinian culture by wearing a keffiyeh scarf. I support Palestinians. And so I am appreciating Palestinians. How is wearing a scarf given to me, in fact, by my Palestinian friends because I stand in solidarity against the genocide?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, everyone believes that. You don't have Palestinian friends. Shut up. What are you talking about? But hilariously, she actually makes what for a long time has been the conservative argument, which is it's not cultural appropriation. You're appreciating it. But notably, right, these people are just, you can't even explain it. Again, just illness is all it is. The left-wing stance on this for many years has been, yes, if a white person wears a piece of clothing or whatever from another culture, that is cultural appropriation. It doesn't matter what the intent is. It's insulting and it's offensive. So, yeah, indeed, the random police officer here is right. By their standards, that literally is cultural appropriation. But needless to say, pretty funny moment.
You think my outfit is offensive?
Are you Mexican?
No.
Yes.
I think it reaffirms stereotypes that are offensive to people.
You think people really think Mexican people are like this and carry around marachas?
No, I don't think people actually think that.
Do you find my outfit offensive?
Yes.
Can I just ask you, do you like my costume?
I like your mustache.
Do you?
Monthly.
Does my outfit offend you?
You look no. You look nice.
Thank you. Do you like my costume?
Yes.
Does it offend you?
Es ofensivo.
No.
Right, but anyways, cultural appropriation aside, let's get back to the serious subject of today's video, which is, of course, the crime problem in DC that the Trump administration is, of course, responding to. You see protesters outside, they're really pissed off about this. They're saying, how dare you give us safe streets and clean cities, you know? I said, by the way, on election night in 2024, that in a sense, what's about to happen is the new administration and the new movement is basically dragging these people, right? Dragging the liberals, kicking and screaming to a better America, whether they realize it or not or like it or not. And that's basically the situation right now that you are seeing. Nonetheless, of course, as Vance and Hegseth meet with the National Guard's folk here, the mainstream media tries to grill him on those very questions. Hey, what is the justification for this? How dare you do this? And then Vance hits back with a very pertinent and obvious point. The reason we're doing this is because guess what? Despite all of your claims to the contrary, despite your gaslighting on the subject, similarly to how the Biden administration tried to gaslight on the subject of inflation, yeah, guess what? Indeed, crime is pretty high, yes, in Washington, D.C. Take a listen.
Are you going to be releasing evidence of this?
Of what? That DC has a terrible crime problem? You just got to look around. Obviously, DC has a terrible crime problem. The Department of Justice statistics back it up. The FBI statistics back it up. Just talk to a resident of this city, this beautiful, great American city. Don't they deserve... I mean, we talk about human rights. We hear these people outside screaming, free D.C. Let's free D.C. from lawlessness. Let's free Washington, D.C. from one of the highest murder rates in the entire world. Let's free Washington, D.C. so that young families can walk around and feel safe and secure. That's what we're trying to free D.C. from. And as Stephen said, it's kind of bizarre that we have a bunch of old, primarily white people who are out there protesting the policies that keep people safe when they've never felt danger in their entire lives.
Yeah, well, obviously. But there's a reason why the national media won't speak to DC residents, because as we've been showing you on every single video on this subject, every time local news, like NBC Washington or something, interviews black residents and many residents who actually live in the district, they're all saying, this is amazing, right? I finally feel safe. I have kids. This is a great thing. The national media is assuming, well, most people don't live in DC. Most people probably have not visited the district in some time. We can gaslight them. They'll believe it, except the problem that they're going to face, nationally speaking, is that this is far from a problem exclusive to Washington. Okay, in almost every major city across this country, a lot of people are feeling the exact same thing. Hence why I truly, in my opinion, believe a lot of people can relate to what's happening. Frankly, there's many Americans across many cities that are probably hoping the same thing would come here. And that said, the media once again tries to grill Vance on the crime is not real argument. None of this stuff is happening, specifically when it comes to Union Station. And here you have Vice President Vance once again pointing out, no, Union Station, as everyone who's been to DC recently or lives in DC knows, is massively, massively dangerous, hence why federal law enforcement has been sent there. And you have yet another moment where, well, journalists have to be shocked to find out that it is the official belief of the Trump administration that crime is real, and it is indeed a problem. Take a listen.
Why are truth stations here at Union Station on the National Mall instead of areas in D.C. where crime is statistically highest?
Well, if you've ever been to Union Station in the last few years with your family, you know that crime is actually extremely high right here in Union Station. You have vagrants, you have drug addicts, you have the chronically homeless, you have the mentally ill who harass, who threaten violence, who attack families, and they've done it for far too long. This should be a monument to American greatness. This should be a place where you can come and share a meal or go shopping with your family. It should not be a place where parents of small children are afraid to bring them because, to Stephen's point, we have empowered criminals over the people who actually need public safety in this city. So I think Union Station is a great example of what's possible when you actually have the political willpower to bring law and order and common decency back to the public spaces of the United States of America.
And hey, by the way, That's a winning message. It's a winning position. You know why? Because as you see in elections time and time again, even in Democrat areas, deep down, everyone wants to feel safe. Everyone wants to have exactly what JD Vance is describing, right? People genuinely would like to live in a place where you can take out your family and feel safe, and you can walk the street at night and all these things. You can drive your car around without constant fear and having to watch your 6 for carjackers. It's pretty basic human common sense. You know what's not a winning position? The losing position is to say to residents of a crime-ridden city that what's happening in front of your own eyes is not happening, right? Crime is not real. It's at 30-year lows, don't you know? Everything around you is perfectly safe. Everything's fine. What's not a winning position is for the protesters outside to scream "Free DC" when their idea of freedom apparently means, okay, homeless, crazy, mentally ill people chasing after you, constant carjackings, constant stabbings, constant shootings, a place where you cannot walk outside and not fear for your life. That's their idea of freedom, right? In the same sense that their idea of democracy is essentially bureaucracy and institutional control. You know, it's very interesting. They say these words, and yet what they're actually trying to communicate is the exact opposite, right? Democracy, power to the people. In a system where the people have no actual power, right? They might vote, or supposedly they do, yet a bunch of unelected bureaucrats actually control the government, right? The will of Congress is not dictated by actual voters and what the voters want. It's dictated by lobbyists, special interests, corporations, bureaucracy, deep state, all of these things. You know, you're kind of noticing a common pattern, I guess, in Democrat rhetoric, but that's hence why I don't truly believe that people are believing it anymore. And again, the crime position is always a winning one for the Republican Party. Stephen Miller, similarly, had a message for the mainstream media that was poetic and well put, to say the least. So take a listen to that as well. And I guess this also applies to the protesters outside.
First of all, thank you to the Vice President for bringing us here today. Thank you, Secretary, for your leadership. And most importantly, thank you to the men and women of the National Guard. I think here's the most important point. There are residents who lived in Washington, D.C. their entire lives. Their parents lived here. Their grandparents lived here. And they have lived for generations in intolerable conditions of crime and decay. There are parts of the city, I moved to the city 20 years ago. There are places where I've seen graffiti that has been untouched for 2 decades. There are homeless encampments that have made it impossible for families to use public parks and public recreation for as long as I've lived here. There are hundreds of residents of this city who are shot in street violence every single year, making it one of the most violent cities on planet Earth. And for too long, 99% of this city has been terrorized by 1% of the city. And the voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots. They have no connections to the city. They have no families they are raising in this city. They have no one that they are sending to school in this city. They have no jobs in this city. They have no connections to this community at all. But they're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. And I'm glad they're here today. Because me, Pete, and the Vice President are all going to leave here, and inspired by them, we're going to add thousands more resources to this city to get the criminals and the gang members out of here. We're going to dismantle those networks, and we're going to prove that a city can serve for the law-abiding citizens who live there.
That is so well and fantastically put by Stephen Miller, as usual. It is true, by the way, the people protesting, do they have kids? Are they actually working? Well, clearly they're not working, right? So what you know, they may live in Washington, D.C. even, but what actual ties and roots do they have in the community? None. Because those who do are quietly, even if it's sort of whispering here, completely in support of the fact that, once again, the city can be made safe. And I think what Stephen's also hitting on, and what the Trump administration has sort of made a statement about, and I brought up when it first happened, is pushing back on this idea that conservatives have to retreat or just give up the urban areas in the cities, right? They're liberal cesspools. There's nothing we can do. You know, you live in DC, New York, LA, whatever, just like move to Texas and be happy or something. And while that mentality is not unwarranted, to the extent to which you can actually fix these places, right? Washington, D.C. is our nation's capital. There's no reason a conservative should just sit around and accept, oh, whatever, the place sucks, it's full of crazy crime, whatever. I'm in my little enclave. No. D.C. is our image, it's our symbol to the world, okay? And proud civilizations build proud and great cities. Guess what we're not? Guess what we're not right now? But if you really want to talk about making America great again, the reclamation of this country, what more important, frankly, type of place to clean up and fix and make livable again and make beautiful again is a place like Washington, D.C., or New York City, or Los Angeles, or San Francisco. All 4 places and many more, Chicago, well, you can go on, right? That are some of the most famous places in not just American history, but world history. They're historically the icons of our civilization. From when people from outside this country think of America, okay, that's what they're imagining in their head. And all of it has turned into decay, into squalor. It's not something that utterly should be acceptable at all. No, there's no reason, okay? There's no genuine, sincere reason besides, as Stephen Miller describes, the 1% terrorizing the 99% and people advocating for the 1% instead of the 99%, that we can't all live in cities where the public parks are like actually places as they're intended to be, where you can take your children or have a nice picnic or have a nice time, okay? The streets you should be able to drive on, doesn't matter what hour it is of the day, and not fear for getting carjacked, okay? It's pretty common sense. The road is for, guess what? Is for you. Your tax dollars paid for that. Again, no reason you shouldn't be able to go to a store and shop without fear of getting robbed outside. It goes on, and I think we basically all understand this, hence why, I think it's so underrated right now, even though it's a big national story, underrated in a sense, what Trump is doing, because he's not just fixing our nation's capital. He is changing, in a sense, and you will see this maybe in the future, the way that conservatives approach our nation's cities and our urban issues, right? Not from 40,000 feet of just criticizing it, but hey, you can't actually fix these places. Now, I'm not saying to go in New York and just magically expect for Republicans to win there. But guess what you can win? Federal control. Guess what you can use as influence? Federal control. That's exactly what the national Republicans right now, an idea that frankly probably no one would have thought of besides individuals from the Trump administration, are displaying to the right wing and the way we think about this type of stuff. And it's true. Now, that said, last thing I'd like to note here in the face of the mainstream media is the fact that it's working, right? Despite all of this, crime is not real, it's not happening, they're responding to an imaginary issue. No, actually, according to Vance, as so lay out for you right here, we've seen a 35% reduction in violent crime and a 50% reduction in robberies ever since the federalization of DC started just 9 days ago. Because newsflash, first of all, crime was real. It was happening. It was not at 30-year lows because guess what? You wouldn't see reductions in the numbers if there was not massive crime happening to begin with. And secondly, okay, contrary to all the idiotic liberal thought, it's pretty simple. You want to stop crime, then you have to create deterrences for crime. Okay, that means increase the punishments for crime, increase law enforcement to stop the crime. It's not that complicated. Okay, all this BLM crap about, you got to send a social worker. We need to increase funding for education, even though we spend so much. All this like riff. No. As Stephen Miller points out, it's a 1% of the population who are hell-bent on terrorizing the 99%. The way you stop the 1% is you stop the 1%. It's not that complicated. It's not something we have to overthink. Our brain doesn't have to be broken by all of this like criminal justice reform ideology. No. You want to stop the criminals, throw the criminals in jail. And you're seeing the evidence of that.
Just the past 9 days, we've seen a 35% reduction in violent crime. We've seen over a 50% reduction in robberies. We are seeing really substantial effects because these guys are busting their ass. So I want to come here, highlight what they're doing, say thank you in person, obviously pass out a few burgers, but most of all, just send a message to the American people. Look, we don't have to live like this. We do not have to allow our cities to be taken over by violence and by disorder and by chaos. You can actually do stuff. You can actually bring law and order to communities. You've just got to have the political willpower to do it.
Again, inscribe that in your head. We don't have to live like this. Such an underrated sentiment, okay, that the right wing needs to say to themselves more, right? A better future, a better world, a country where you don't have to put up with this. It is actually possible, okay? The mentality of like, okay, just, okay, you live in a city, many people do, just hide in the house, don't do. It doesn't have to be that way. But what we obviously need is leadership from, it should be bipartisan, but as you can see, it's not. So at the very least from the right wing of the Republican Party, that doesn't just kind of express this sentiment of surrender or just like ridiculing the big cities. It says, we're actually going to fix it. We're going to do something to stop it because it doesn't have to be like this. Turns out you can do things if you have the political will. Yes, that's true. So anyways, with all of that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.